Okay.
8 p.m. And I'm only going to do a half a blot now, and then we'll do another half a blot of Yud Gimel Saturday night with Yud Daled. Now, the Dilma Lo Ayaklal, maybe as long as it hasn't ripened, it's not considered a Shemitah fruit. Maybe by Shemitah it's different. Why should we extend it Chag HaSukkos? The Gemara says lo salkadaita. It's not that it's not lo ayil klal. The Chag HaAsif, the yontif of gathering, b'tzei sashana. Now, my asif, ilem Chag haba bizman asifa, which is Chsukkos. Haksiv ba'aspacha. Well, it already says when you gather. Elamai asif, here you have to change the meaning, and it means kotzir. It means the yontif when you cut it, when you harvest it. V'kim l'rabbanan to call tfush and niktzar b'chag, any grain that you only harvested in Sukkos, it's clear that type of grain had already grown a shlish prior to Rosh Hashanah. Yet the kakari lebed says, yet it's called at the end of the year, which is the end of last year. So that's why there's a raya that is considered part of the Shemitah year, the year before Sukkot. The Kimlu Rabbanan ben Shlish to Pochos ben Shlish. Do the Chachamim have the ability to discriminate between a plant that's a third or less than a third? Understand? Every halacha is like that. Kol midas chachamim kenu. Be'arbaim sahu tov, be'arbaim sahu chaser kurta, ve'ena yochel adolman. A mikveh that has 40 saw, you can go into the mikveh. If it's got 1 milliliter less, or whatever a kurtiv is, you can't be toivel in it. Kibetza. Food that, in order to be makabel tum, has to be kibetza. But kibetza chaser shum shum. If it's an egg less than 1 sesame seed, ain't no tum masochlin. Shloisha al shloisha, a beged that's 3 by 3 tfachim, a tame medras. If a zav sits on it, it becomes tame. But shloisha al shloisha chaser nima achas. If it's 3 by 3 minus 1 thread, ain't no tame medras. So what are you asking? Can the chachamim discern between a shlish and a nadish? Of course they can, like all the other halachas of shiurim. Hadaram Rav Yirmiyah. So Rav Yirmiyah went back on what he said. Lav milsa hida amri. I didn't say it correctly. The boy minei chavrayim Rav Kahana. The chaverim asked Rav Kahana. Oimer she krivu Yisrael b'knisos lo aretz meichan ikrivu. Klal Yisrael, after Moshe died, on the 10th of Nisan, crosses the Yarden and comes into Eretz Yisrael with Yoshua. On the 16th day of Nisan that year, they had to be makriv the oimer. Now, whose barley did they makriv? And who did they find? Im tomer da'al biyad nachri. Did they find barley in the hands of a non-Jew? K'tzirchem am rachman v'lo k'tzir nachri. It had to be owned by a Jew because it says k'tzirchem.
But they had the Torah already?
No, when they went into Eretz Yisrael.
Oh, when they went to Eretz Yisrael. This is Yeshua, this afterwards.
Yeshua on the 10th of Nisan, well, like we learned.
Yeshua, okay, yeah, it's Yeshua. It's not the first year. Okay.
So the Gemara asks, first of all, Mimayda Krivu. First of all, how do you know that they were makriv the oimer in the first year? Dilma loya krivu. So where's this low socket? That's not a good havamina. The chsiv, vayachlu mavur haaretz mimachras haPesach. It says very clearly that the day after Pesach, day after the first day of Pesach, they ate from the grain of the land. Mimachras haPesach achol, meikar lo yachol. Now, what happens mimachras haPesach on the 16th? They bring the oimer, and that's the trigger, the matir, that allows you to eat the new grain. So it's clearly that they brought the oimer to allow them to eat. So again, we ask the question: how did they harvest Jewish barley when they were only in the land for a few days? as long as it had not reached a shlish in the hands of the goy, and perhaps it was given to the Jew when he came in on the 10th of Nisan, the nigmar bishulo, and then its ripeness, it finished the shlish, it finished its shlish in the hands of a Jew, and that could be done l'shem oimer. So v'dilma ayel v'loy kimluhu. Maybe it already grew a shlish in the ownership of the non-Jew. So the shaila is no. Elakimluhu. No, they could discern whether or not it was, they found some grain that had not been a third, and then they allowed it to grow for 4 or 5 days, and then it grew a third in the hands of a Jew, and they could offer that, they could harvest that for the oimer. Alchanami kimlu. Maybe it didn't grow at all. But maybe once it grew to a fourth of its size, maybe they are not able to tell between a third. So the Gemara says lo saket. Again, it's not a good havamid. The Jewish people crossed the Yarden on the 10th of Nisan. And if you're saying there was no growth, you can't say that it was in 5 days, it completely ripened to the complete state of ripeness. It must be that it grew a little bit and they were able to discern that. Elamai, the Isle River Oidanka, maybe it grew a fourth or a sixth. But it didn't grow to complete ripeness. But maybe it did. Eretz Tzvi Ksivba. Eretz Yisrael is called Eretz Tzvi. Tzvi is a deer, which is very fast. To give us the concept that things grow very quickly in Eretz Yisrael. So Hachanami Eretz Tzvi Ksivba. So here as well, it was Eretz Tzvi, that it ripened quickly. And it maybe ripened completely, not as shlish. So Maski for Rav Chanina, mi motzesam is high osif katzirhu. We started the sugya by saying, well, it already says ba'aspacha. So what does Chag Asif refer to? It actually refers to the Chag that you harvest. You shall gather grain and wine. This is not referring to the Iker harvest. It's referring, that means you use the psoiles, goren and Yaakov for the schach of your sukkah. So it's just gathering the straw. On Rav Zeir, Hai Milsa, Havai B'yod. They had the following proof. Was Rav Chanina Shada Beinarga. And Rav Chanina came and sort of knocked a nail in it and cut it down. And Rav Chanina's kasha about mi matzah to I osif katzerhu, it's written is a good kasha. So the question is, where's the makor that the zman of giving meiser is when you give it a third? Because we knocked that out of the box. We said that there is no proof because Eretz Tzvi implies that maybe it ripened completely, not necessarily just a third. So the Gemara answers Kidatanya. I'll give you the source that the trigger for Meiser is growing which fiscal year you put in it is when it's grown a third. Rav Yosef ben Yosef Oimer, the asas es hatrua lishlosh hashanim. Al tikra l'sholish ela lishlish. Doesn't mean l'shol, it means a third. Once it's reached a third, that's considered the date when it's koiveya, which year you give the meiser. You need it that the din, that the grain will be given a blessing, so that you'll have plenty of grain during Shemitah. It'll grow, without the kind of care you normally do, not in a Shemitah year. So ksiv krachmin, you have another pasuk for that. Uzratem et hashana shminit. That whatever you grow in the 8th year, you'll be able to eat from the old grain, which will last till the 9th year. That's the bracha in the fruit for the Shemitah year that will keep you going. Okay,
Sure.
You home for Shabbos?
Yes, I'll be home tonight, God willing.
The sun's shining over there?